everyone, it's Mrs. Gonzalez and
Mrs. McPhail.
to talk to you today about fact power with grids.
Get it? Fact power? Power with grids?
I get it.
Okay, sorry.
All right, looking at what we have to do today, I can represent multiplication in various ways, and I can solve number grid problems.
All right, so let's get started.
Okay, here is an example of a number grid. Up on the top of this number grid, we have the numbers 2 and 6. Here they are. Here's 2 and here is 6. Down the side of the grid, we have a number 3 and we also have a number 6. We need to fill in the middle, the empty space of this grid. Think of this as a mini multiplication table. If we were using the multiplication chart in our math journal and we wanted to find the answer to 2 times 3, I would go to the 2, and then I would go over to the 3, and where those meet is where my answer would be. 2 times 3 is 6, so I'm going to go ahead and write a 6 here. Then I'm going to go to the next square. If I wanted to figure out what the answer should be here, I'm going to look up. Here's the number 6, and I'm going to look all the way over to the left, and I have a 3. So 3 times 6 gives me an answer of 18. Now I'm going to move down to the next set of squares. I want to figure out this answer right here, so I'm going to use this 6 and I'm going to use this 2. Take a minute to think about what that answer would be. 6 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12. And our last square. Ooh, look at this. We have a 6 and we have a 6. The answer is going to be a square number.
Square number.
Think in your head, what is 6 times 6? Answer is 36. All right, Mrs. McPhail is going to show you the next problem.
Mrs. G, I have a problem, or a question for you, not a problem. Well, maybe it's a problem. I'm confused, though. If there's a multiplication sign, what does this division sign have to do with anything?
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot to talk about the division sign.
Let's talk about it.
All right, well, do you know how when we have our fact triangles, they always make us write 2 multiplication problems and then 2 division problems? Oh, I see your drawing went out.
Yeah.
Why don't you put a 2, a 3, and a 6 in that triangle?
Can you remind me where they go?
Sure. The biggest number always goes at the top of your triangle. So we want a 6 at the top, and that's where the dot is, if you imagine the dot. And then the smaller numbers go on the bottom. So we need a 2 and a 3, and they can be in either spot. Okay. If I was going to multiply, I would do my 2 little numbers at the bottom and multiply them together to get the big number at the top. 2 times 3 is 6. And if I flip them around, turnaround rule, 3 times 2 is also 6.
I love that turnaround rule.
Me too.
I should put this in the middle.
But remember, multiplication is related to division. I can also divide. If I start with the big number this time instead of the small numbers, I can do 6 divided by 2, and that gives me an answer of 3. There are 3 2's inside that big number of 6. And then, of course, I could go the other way. I could do 6 divided by 3. So how many 3's in 6? That would give me an answer, yes, of 2.
Oh, I get it. So then if I, let's say, had to find one of these outside numbers, I would have to use this inside number to divide it by the outside number to get the answer.
You are absolutely correct. Thank you for bringing that up. That's very important.
Of course. So we love our fact triangles too. Okay. Speaking of having to use division, are you ready for a challenge, Mrs. Gonzalez?
I sure am.
Okay. I have a very tricky problem for you. Now, on my little puzzle here, I have a 5 in the top row, but notice my top row is blank here. On the side, I have an 8, and then I also have another blank. Now notice before, we had those top rows filled out and the side columns filled out as well, just like on your multiplication charts. So now our problem is that we have products inside here. We need to figure out what numbers are going to go on the top of those corresponding rows and columns. So it's kind of like a tricky puzzle. We can't figure out 63 because we don't know what we can divide into it to get the numbers on the outside of our grid. So my recommendation is to always look for a number along one of the rows or one of the columns that you can start with that corresponds with one of the numbers on the inside. In this case, we have the number 5 on the top row And if we bring our finger or our pen down, we can see it matches up with 45. So if we think back to our fact triangle, remember our little dot on the top with our biggest number, so we're going to write 45. And then we can put 5 in either place. We have to think to ourselves, what other number would work with 5 to go into 45?
Mrs. McPhail, can I count by 5s to get up to 45?
That sounds like a great idea. Go ahead.
Okay. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45.
How many was that?
That was 9.
So what you're saying is that 45 divided by 5 would be 9.
That's right.
Huh. So friends, guess what then? We know that the 5 is here and 45 is there, so we're going to write the 9 right there. So therefore, if we double check our work, 5 times 9 would be 45. Now, Mrs. G, we can figure this out because now we have one of the answers to 63. And we know that 63 divided by 9 is what?
That's a hard one.
That is a really hard one. Do we have any tricks for that one?
I don't know.
I don't have any tricks for that either. Well, friends, if you can think of a trick to remember this, we might have a good surprise in store for you. I don't know. I'm just thinking right now. But anyway, 63 divided by 9 would be 7. So we're going to put the 7 on top. Okay? Now we can fill in the rest of our grid. 5 times 8 is 40. And 7 times 8 is 56.
Hey, Mrs. McPhail, if they're doing this in class, I think they have that multiplication chart in the front cover of their math journal, don't they?
I'm so glad you said that, yes. And Mrs. Gonzalez is absolutely right. You can flip that open and take a look at that number chart in there and use your fingers or your pencil and go ahead and find the 5 on the top and the 8 on the side and draw them across to where they meet and find the 40. And so it's a good way of double checking your work as well. Okay, ready for the fun challenge?
I am.
All right, here we go.